Watson coming in, Senator Ben Watson. So we will get started. I'm going to ask Senator Hodges if you would open us up in prayer.
Would you pray with me? Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for this beautiful state in which we live. Thank you for all the other blessings you've bestowed upon us, Lord. Lead us and guide us today as we tend to the affairs of the people of our state. Grant us your judgment and your wisdom. These things we ask in Christ's name. Amen.
Good. Well, good morning. Welcome to the committee. If you want to sign up, please come up to the front and sign up. I'm going to tell you we're going to limit comments to about 3 minutes. So be brief and let us know how you feel about the bill. All right. SB 171, Senator Burns, and we're working off LC 472284S, I believe. Is that correct? If you look, 472284S?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right. The floor is yours.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to come before the committee and discuss this bill. This is a bill that came from the Downtown Development Authority Study Committee from this past year. It has really only 3 provisions. Section 1 is a provision where members of development authorities should be replaced in a timely manner, as opposed to serving expired terms, 6 months, and then if the governing authority doesn't make a decision, then the board can name a successor. Section 2 is in training. Specifically lines 46 through 53, which would require 4 hours of annual training for members of the board of a development authority. If they do not pursue their training for the 2 consecutive years, then their voting rights are suspended until they complete the training. The last section is section 3, and this is a contractor protection clause where when contractors provide services to development authorities, if for any reason the development authority's project is unsuccessful, then the contractor needs lien rights to recover any cost or expenses associated with that. And the most significant component is a technique used by development authorities called usufruct. And I'm going to ask Bill Doris, Mr. Bill Doris, if he'll come and define that term and explain what it does for and to development authorities. Mr. Doris, are you available?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm on line 97.
Good morning. A usufruct is simply the right to possess and use the property as compared to a leasehold estate. It is not viewed as a interest in property, but it's the right to use and possess the property, and that right is not taxable. And that is the way the development authorities achieve tax abatement, is through taking the fee title in the development authority itself, and then the developer having what's called a usufruct, and that is not taxable. What this does is simply say that the contractor that then is providing the services and the construction work for the developer can lien the developer's interest in the property. The same as if the developer had never moved the title to the development authority. It does not end up being a lien on any of the interests of the development authority itself.
Okay, and same with that would be the same with the state of Georgia. If the state of Georgia owned a piece of property that was under development, the state would not be, it would be the developer who was in a contract with the state, for example?
Right. That is correct, Senator. And this bill wouldn't even apply to that because it only applies to development authorities.
Okay.
And property that they are helping develop to tax abatement.
So let's take one of the projects, the Rivian project, which is a huge project. I believe the state owns the land, but I do believe they went through a development authority to do the work. So who would be, the state has sovereign immunity, but who would be on the developer would then be on the hook, basically?
Well,
If you would say.
if what you, I don't know about the structure
Yeah.
of Rivian project, but from what you described, if a development authority is then contracting with the contractor to
Okay.
construct it, it would be then the interest of the development authority. But normally what happens there is the development authority contracts with a developer who then hires a contractor.
I got you.
That's what this is designed to do. This does not give anybody the interest in what's being held by the development authority itself.
Okay. Any questions of members? All right.
10, please. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One question, two questions, actually. What's the difference between rental rights and use of rights? And then the second question, go ahead with the first question.
There may not be any difference. It has to do with how long those rental rights exist. In other words, if it's a leasehold interest in the property,
Right.
and under Georgia law, that means if it's longer than 5 years, it's presumed to be a leasehold interest. If it's less, it's presumed to be a usufruct
Okay.
and simply a right to possess and use.
Okay, and then the other question was, these mechanic liens we're talking about, even though the property is owned by the development authority, would filing of a lien, would it cloud the title to the property if say the project didn't work, liens are filed, and the development authority wanted to pass the property, wanted to lease it to somebody else, or wanted to sell it, that lien would have to be satisfied before that happened?
Well, the lien actually doesn't attach to the fee title itself. So it would not affect the development authority passing that fee to someone else. It just attaches to the developer's right to use and possess the property. So as soon as that right were to end, then it could be transferred without that lien clouding the title. It is what I would think.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions from committee members? Thank you for your testimony. Appreciate you coming down. Any closing comments?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate favorable consideration
All right.
for
I have
SB
not seen the
171.
sign-up sheet, but does anybody in the audience wish to speak in favor or opposition to this Senate Bill 171? Anybody want to speak? Okay, seeing none. What is the will of the committee?
Mr. Chairman, I move do pass.
Okay, we got a motion by Senator Hodges. Second by Senator Hickman. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, raise your right hand. It's unanimous. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. All right, now we will go on to Senator Halpern. We've got and it is Senate Bill 235, LC 500552S.
Correct.
Is that correct?
That's right.
All right, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. So let me just start by thanking you, Mr. Chairman, for your interest in allowing me to present this bill, and also committee members Senator Hickman and Senator Mallow for being co-sponsors of the bill, and also allow me to acknowledge our colleague, the majority chair, and my former suite mate, Senator Anna Vitarte, who not only is a co-sponsor of the bill, but also really leaned in as a member of the HBCU study committee that was done during our interim. And that really is the genesis of why we're here. So you see, last year, I had the honor of chairing that Senate Study Committee on Excellence, Innovation, and Technology at our HBCUs. And after months of hearings with business and economic development, nonprofit, education, public policy leaders, and HBCU leaders, several themes became quite apparent. The first is that these institutions are an enormous asset to our state. In fact, they boast a $1.3 billion economic impact each year, $9 billion in lifetime earnings for every graduating class. They award 23% of all bachelor degrees earned by Black students, and they educate 18% of all Black undergraduates each year at four-year institutions in the state. Two, They positively impact the lives of thousands upon thousands of Georgia students every year, generation after generation, playing a vital role in elevating their socioeconomic status and helping to develop future business, civic, community, and faith-based leaders. As a personal example, my parents grew up on the farms in Jim Crow, Mississippi, and what they couldn't know or even dream at the time was that going to an HBCU would change the trajectory of their lives forever. Being on Tougaloo College's campus in Mississippi was their first glimpse of what it meant to be young, gifted, and Black, and the responsibility that that instills. Fast forward 70 years later into the future, substitute Tougaloo for Albany State University, and you will find young people there who fit this same description. Lives are changed at these educational institutions. And yet, these schools have infrastructure needs. They have capacity needs. We are concerned about their ability to grow and sustain for the next century. And so we got to thinking as a committee. And here's what we thought. We thought we need a new idea, a solution that recognizes the important role these anchor institutions play to the students and the communities in which they sit, but also solves for the need for increased institutional capacity and investment. We need an idea that contemplates today's landscape and embraces growth with a keen eye towards sustainability. We need a new idea that's a spin on an old framework that's proven successful in the past, because we understand that there's a symbiotic relationship between our HBCUs, the communities they sit, and the future of them and the future of our state are interchangeable. And because we understand that talent, especially diverse, skilled talent, is a commodity that business is chasing all throughout the state that we deliver, we're the #1 state to do business, and part of that reason is because our HBCUs contribute. It's the reason why you've got a support letter in your binder from the Metro Atlanta Chamber. We also know and understand that Georgia is always willing to see a problem and address it creatively, as we've done with Fort Benning and the development projects that we've catalyzed there, as we did years ago with our college and career readiness academies when we saw that problem and decided to create something new. And so that is how the study committee came to the recommendation to create HBCU economic prosperity planning districts as a catalyst for economic development, community development, and workforce development, with our HBCUs at the center helping to drive those efforts. These planning districts posit that HBCUs can be provided the monetary and legislative resources to play a vital role as economic engines, particularly in the communities in which they sit. This legislation that you're looking at in front of you creates a structure of leadership that is intentionally high level and deliberately inclusive. We are creating an HBCU Economic Prosperity Planning Commission, and authorizing that commission to create planning districts, collect and distribute money, interface with our HBCU presidents, oversee and guide the process, and appoint local advisory committees that would be made up of HBCU presidents, local community leaders, and other stakeholders who can really determine a master plan for that particular school and the community in which it sits. There would be 5 planning districts as outlined in this legislation. 1 for the Atlanta University Center here in Atlanta, 1 for Payne College in Augusta, 1 for Savannah State University in Savannah, 1 for Fort Valley State University, and 1 for Albany State University. 5, because all 5 of those schools might have very specific needs that are different from the others. And the ability to have the input from local folks to rise up to that commission is gonna be the thing that makes us be able to attract either the business, the funds, the whatever we decide needs to happen in each of those districts. So where might the money come from? Because all of you are probably wondering, is she asking the state for money? I am not, in this piece of legislation, asking the state for a dollar. What we know is that there are already dollars, I should say today. I am not today asking the state for a dollar. What we know is that there are federal dollars already out there that we can draw down and use to improve the communities these schools sit in and the schools themselves. As an example, there are infrastructure dollars that could be used for something as basic as sidewalk improvements in a master plan for a particular planning district. There are dollars out there right now, today, federal dollars for rural broadband that could be used to help to upgrade the broadband and the technology capacities at these schools and then spread that back out to the rest of the communities in which they sit. There are dollars that we are not getting that these planning districts, through that planning commission, can write grants for, collect, and distribute back. Again, working locally with folks to decide what are their particular needs. Small business incubators, housing, mixed-use housing that sits on land that HBCU's campuses own. How might we use these schools that are already an asset for the state and leverage them further to help spur additional growth, additional development, and also make sure that the schools are taken care of in the process? In very many ways, this is university-driven economic development. And it is what we are asking you to contemplate. And I am not saying that this is the end-all, be-all panacea. But what I am saying is that what we've been doing isn't enough. And in this concept, we have the chance to try something innovative, something, quite frankly, that can become a model for how other states support their HBCUs. I am always going to bet on Georgia. So let us leverage the best and the brightest of this state to come together on the Planning Commission and the local advisory committees to spark a change that delivers for the business, community, students, and the school. So just as the study committee was willing to think creatively, I ask you to ponder the possibilities inherent in this legislation. And I dare say that one day we will look back at this moment and the magnitude of the moment with this decision and know that it was as significant to higher education as it was the moment that we passed the Hope Scholarship years ago.
Okay, well, you got several questions. You ready?
I am.
Vice Chairman?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Don't talk us out of it now. Everybody's ready to move. It's going to sound like a stupid question, but they're separate and distinct. With the Atlanta University Center, is Morehouse Medicine part of that?
It is.
Even though it's separate?
It is separate. So the AU Center, it is separate, but the AU Center we think of as all 6 of those schools
Okay.
right here.
And if I'm not mistaken, Georgia has more HBCUs than any other state.
We do not have more. So Georgia is ranked number 2, tied with North Carolina for the number. We have 10 HBCUs in our state. Alabama has 13. North Carolina has 10 as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't count those Alabama ones.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
okay.
Thank you.
Well, they don't count.
Those
'cause,
are
you know,
junior colleges.
We can do.
Okay, is that you, Senator Watson, 12?
I think you answered my question, but at the due time, I'll make a motion to pass. But
All right.
so 10 HBCUs and we're doing 5, and that's because the Atlanta
Yes.
University Consortium includes. Let me see if I can figure this out. Interdenominational Theological Center, Morehouse College, Morehouse School of Medicine,
Yep. Spelman
Morris Brown,
Yes.
and Spelman.
And Clark Atlanta University.
And I left out Clark. Is the, and there's no distinguishing. Payne and some of the others are private schools and some of these are public schools.
Yes.
There's no distinguishing from that perspective, is that?
No, intentionally.
Okay.
They all have needs. We've got, the
Not already in there.
breakdown of the 10 is we've got 7 private HBCUs in our state and 3 state public schools.
So the three public are Savannah State
Albany State, and
and
Fort Valley State.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right, Senator Mallow, do you have a question?
Yes, to the author of the bill. Is it not true that for the history of Savannah State, we actually started where the University of Georgia is today? Savannah State originated in Athens, Georgia, and was reluctantly moved to Savannah with the Georgia General Assembly. So if you think about all that UGA is today, just know that Savannah State started right there.
That's an excellent point. I'll add to that just a little bit. We've got, you just heard Savannah State's history. Fort Valley State University is a land-grant institution. It's one of the 1890 land-grant institutions. Our only other land-grant is UGA. And so, yeah, there's lots of opportunities, I think, in front of us for investment. And again, what we're seeing, this is also very timely. What we're seeing throughout the country right now is a real focus on HBCUs. There's a lot of conversation about underfunding, which this study committee did not undertake that as a conversation. But we know that there's a lot of conversation about underfunding, and that is because a lot of the news that you might see about HBCUs is about the lawsuits that states are being challenged with around that issue. Again, our study committee said, how might we think about the problem in a different way? How might we allow Georgia to do something different to still support their schools and recognize them for the assets that they are for the state?
Senator, we've got 4 speakers,
Yes.
and I'm going to hold them to 2 minutes.
That's great.
Antonio Lewis, I believe, is the first one for 2:35. If you could come up, be brief. I think she's already sold us, but so just be very brief.
I appreciate you, Antonio Lewis, Atlanta City Council member. Thank you, Senator Halpin, for writing this bill. Thank you to the sponsors. I heard, I don't want to miss anybody, so thank you,
That's
Senator
all right.
Marlowe, Senator Hickman, and I Senator McLaurin. I want to appreciate you for doing that. My name is Antonio Lewis. I am a HBCU graduate from the city of Atlanta. I went to Lincoln University in Missouri, which is a land-grant school in Missouri. And so when we think about the underfunding of HBCUs and to see this growth that we're bringing forth right now, when you think about Albany State, for example, by itself, about 10 years ago, a hotel was built on Albany State's campus by the Hilton. Had this bill been put forth, Albany State would have built its own hotel and brought forth a hospitality management degree that will influence the hotel industry in the whole state of Georgia. And when you think about Fort Valley, a couple of years ago, the state of Georgia started to fund Fort Valley's land grant mission 100%. And that's I truly commend this body for bringing that forth. But we do know Fort Valley has been underfunded by $577 million over the lifetime of its land grant in comparison to UGA. UGA has always had a 1-to-1 and sometimes a 13-to-1 match when Fort Valley was getting 50 cents on the dollar sometimes. So I know that this body did not go that far into that. But if you look across the nation, the state of Maryland Eastern Shores, they were awarded over $500 million from the state of Maryland because of underfunding. If you look at Tennessee, right now, Tennessee State University, a state legislator, I know I got to go after this right here. I appreciate you. Sometimes we give, at the city of Atlanta, we do give elected officials a little bit more time, so I don't know if that courtesy is extended in the state house. But
Well, we just got a lot to do, and I think she's already sold us.
Yes,
So
sir.
just,
I appreciate you.
Thank
Thank
you. You came this morning. I wanted to give you time to speak, so thank you for being here.
This
Thank
will
you
make
for your
our
service
state better.
to the city of Atlanta on the city council. Thank you, council.
Thank you.
All right, next is Nathaniel,
Smith.
I can't read it.
Smith.
Okay, Smith, all right, that should be easy to do. Thank you. Welcome.
It's good to see you. This will be the shortest testimonial ever. I'm Nathaniel Smith with the Partnership of Southern Equity. I support this legislation 100%. I just wanted to take the time to acknowledge Senator Halpern for her leadership in being able to bring all of the various stakeholders together to come up with an innovative solution. But I just wanted to make sure that I was on the record to honor her and also support this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Okay, next is Roy Hadley. Roy, how are you this morning?
I'm doing fantastic,
Good,
sir.
good.
What about you?
Good.
Good. Chairman Beach, Vice Chairman Dugan, good morning. I too am going to be very brief. My mother and father both told me you had 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. I heard you. I am not going to be the one to talk you out of passing this thing this morning. So I just want to echo what Senator Halpern said, and that is this is a tremendous opportunity for the state of Georgia. You're seeing these kind of economic zones across the nation. I'll just give one example. Down in New Orleans, they created the Bio District right next to Xavier University, which is another HBCU in New Orleans, specifically tied to biomedical research and innovation. Xavier graduates the most African-American doctors in the country. And so what they did was really tie their economic zone to that. And we have that same opportunity in Savannah, in all of our HBCU zones. So just here in support of it, again, I'm done. I'm not going to be the one to talk you out of it and have
Well, Mr.
Senator
Hadley,
Halpern mad at me.
I'm from New Orleans, and I know Xavier, and they've done a great job down there, and they really have focused on the biosciences.
Yes,
and that's
sir.
something we need to be focusing on
Absolutely.
also. But thank you for your testimony.
Thank you, sir.
Finally, on this bill, we have James Woodall. James, if you'd come up and be brief, I would appreciate it.
Be glad to, Mr. Chair. Thank you. I'll be brief. James Woodall from the ITC, which is a graduate institution here in Atlanta. And I just want to raise that when we talk about economic development, it's more than just how the students are helping our economy. We're also talking about how the campus space is actually being utilized to actually build out business, build out housing. And that's something that the ITC has been doing. We've talked to Leader Dugan, we've talked to Senator Halpern about that at the ITC. And so we're doing a capital investment on our campus to be able to use that space to build housing, to address food insecurity. And then the last thing I'll mention is that ITC is the only standalone graduate institution for theological education in the country. And we have that here, right here in the city of Atlanta. And what that means is that we are producing thousands upon thousands of clergy throughout the country, not just to go into parishes, but also to talk about education, to talk about law, to talk about public safety. And so we have bivocational clergy that are not just preachers, but also are able to do the work of promoting what it means to be a good citizen here in this community. So I'm grateful for this legislation, and we support it wholeheartedly.
Thank you for your testimony. Senator Halpern, I've got one question, then I've got a comment, and then I'll let you close, and then we'll entertain a motion. Have you talked to Chancellor Perdue or anybody at the Board of Regents about this, or anybody?
So the Chancellor and I have had a conversation. He and I actually sat down before the study committee was finished, and since then, of course, he has a copy of this report, and he is, even in here, you'll see where we've said that the Chancellor would also be part of the process of the report back. So I mean, I'm looking forward to working with the Chancellor on this particular effort and making sure that the schools are really, again, transformed through the process.
Now, here's my statement. Years ago, Roy Barnes and Johnny Isaacson got together and created something called CIDs, and people didn't know what that was. And it was the one CID, and they were trying to build a road called the Kennedy Interchange, and they knew they couldn't have economic development if they didn't create some mechanism to create funding to do this. Now there's 29 CIDs in the metro area. When I was reading this, I kind of thought about these 5 districts being like mini CIDs, if you will, to go in there and help the community and plan and figure out how to fund broadband or projects or housing or whatnot. I look at that very similar to this, and this could be a transformational idea that we talk about 20 years from now, like we're talking about Roy Barnes and Johnny Isaacson, a Republican and Democrat that came together to get a interchange built, and you wouldn't have Brave Stadium there right now if
That's exactly right.
Kennedy Interchange wouldn't have been built.
I love that analogy.
All right, we got one final question. 14, is that you?
No, at the appropriate time, I wanted to move due pass.
Okay, well, we will. Do you have any final comments?
No, I
All right.
just thank you for your consideration, and I ask you to vote favorably.
All right. Senator James?
Yes, I'd like to move that Senate Bill 235 do pass.
Okay, and then I got a second from Vice Chairman Dugan. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. Okay, it's unanimous.
Thank you so
Congratulations.
much.
Great
Thank you.
presentation.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Good luck. Okay. We just received, Senator Dixon, if you'd go down front, please. We just received your sub on COAM, Senate Bill 174. It was just passed out as we sat down at 8 o'clock. It's LC 280591S. LC 280591S. We're going to do a hearing only. There will be no action taking on this today since we just received it, but we want to give you the opportunity to talk about it. I know there's been a lot of hard work for a while between all the folks in the industry, and some have agreed and disagreed, but they finally, I think, have come together to hopefully come up with something, and I want to read it, but I want you to explain it, and then we'll go from there.
Yes,
The
sir.
floor is
Thank you
yours.
so much, Mr. Chairman and committee members, for giving me a hearing this morning. I bring before you Senate Bill 174, which has to do with the COAM industry, which is under the Georgia Lottery Commission. And I'll go through section by section so you can follow along with the changes. So in section 1, it places the COAM division of the GLC under the Georgia Administration Procedures Act, and arbitrations between licenses under the Georgia Arbitration Code, which is lines 30 through 37. The reasoning for this will make GLC rule and regulations, making them more transparent and giving stakeholders the right to give input. It also cleans up conflicts in the law regarding to arbitrations and appeals from arbitration decisions. It also requires GLC to publish all written correspondence asking for opinions and interpretations of law or regulations from GLC's answers to correspondence. And then moving on to section 2, it defines the gift card as an item that a player can redeem for his or her points accumulated for successful play of a COAM, and that's in lines 87 through 102. The reasoning, it will lead to greater transparency and will enhance GLC's ability to regulate the industry. Moving on to section 3, it requires disclosures by applicants for location licenses and provides for punishment in the event that an applicant for a license provides false information to GLC, and that's on lines 155 through 185. Section 3 also provides that a gift card of any kind, as defined in Section 2, may be redeemed by a player for successful play of COAMs, and that's lines 198 through 224. The reasoning is current law allows for players to redeem points for GLC branded gift cards, and GLC has initiated that pilot program, and it's been very popular with licensees. We believe this will eliminate cash payouts and make record keeping and tax collection more efficient. It also allows for location licensees and operators to jointly sponsor dart and billiards tournaments to provide gift cards and prizes. And for all of y'all that aren't in the COAM industry, in which this was new to me, but the dart and the billiard, they are actually making those type of games as well, and they're very popular in this space. The section also requires that assets of a master license holder be sold at a public auction in the event of a settlement between the licensee and GLC after notice revocation or non-renewal of a license, and that's lines 239 through 243. The reasoning provides for more transparency in the way that GLC handles its statements of disciplinary matters. And then moving on to section 4, this section provides clarification on GLC, on what GLC means when the regulations say that an operator may not have interest in a location owner or a location operator. The reasoning for this is an operator having interest in a location owner or a location operator violates the 3-tier licensing system enacted in 2013. This provision further clarifies what is prohibited. It also provides that GLC is required to auction one master license every 3 years, and that's on lines 282 to 289. And then moving on to Section 5, provides that a calculation of a location owner gross retail receipts will be done quarterly instead of monthly. And the reasoning for this, it provides, this provision would take into account seasonally and other ebbs and flows of revenue. And by looking at it quarterly and taking the average of those retail sales and the COAM revenue, because some of these locations, they are seasonal, and this just would help bring them into compliance. It exempts veterans and fraternal organizations from meeting the 50-50 rule. I've met with several folks that are in the veteran and those fraternal organizations, and a lot of what the revenue they've lived off of or depended on rather in recent years is bingo play, and that the popularity of that game is really declining, and I have to say anything that we can do to help our veterans, we should definitely do that. Let's see, moving on to Section 6, what it provides for is a minimum contract of 2 years between operators and location owners, but that the contract may not be longer than the lease with the landlord. So it kind of brings all that together where they can't have, the COAM operator or the licensee couldn't have a contract longer with the tenant than what the tenant has with the location owner if they don't own the real estate. And then moving on to Section 5, it provides that a calculation of a location owner's gross retail receipts will be done. Oh, wait. I flipped
Section 7?
Yeah. Sorry.
7?
I flipped the page on myself.
7?
I apologize.
Okay. Section,
My
what
apologies.
line number?
What's that?
Line number before you explain what you're saying.
I'm sorry.
It's the line number.
Okay, will do. Yes, ma'am, we'll do that for sure. All right, so still in Section 6, so then this would be line 384 through 387. It provides that a location licensee may assume the agreement between his or her predecessor and or operator by contract as well as informal writing. And then moving on to Section 7, it provides that it is unlawful for an operator to offer inducement to a location owner or a location operator. And that's section, I apologize, that's section 414 through 415, lines 414 and 415 in Section 7. And then moving on to, in Section 7, lines 424 to 428, it provides that an operator who is harmed by behavior prohibited under the unfair methods of competition section of the law, this would allow for private cause of action that they could sue the offender. And the reasoning for this is the courts have held that there is no right to sue under this section, and as it's currently drafted, and this cleans that language up. And still on Section 7, lines 430 through 439, it allows an operator to make improvements to the location where COAM is placed, so as long as the improvements are not permanently fixed to the location. And then moving on to Section 8, it provides that a licensee brings or defends arbitration on the grounds that were found by the arbitrator to be frivolous, and as this section is defined in the law, the loser would pay over to the winner the revenue generated by the COAMs during the time of this arbitration. So currently the law, and I'll clean that comment up, but currently the law, if there is arbitration, the machines have to stay on, so this cleans that up, so the winner of that arbitration would receive the revenue during that time period. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Okay. Number 12, is that you, Senator Watson?
Just for an overview, if you don't mind, the lottery produces how much money a year for our Hope and Pre-K?
If I could, I've got Paul here. If he could come up, he can answer some of those questions for you, probably more accurately than I could.
Big picture.
I'm sorry.
The lottery produces how much for
Could
our
you
Hope?
state your name first, please?
Sure, Paul Oland, and I'm on behalf of United Gaming. We're an operator in the state. So through the COAM division,
No, just big picture lottery. How much money is produced?
does it return to Hope?
Yes,
About $1 billion total.
$1 billion. And how much is COAM?
It's growing every year. I think this most recent time was about 140 million
So about 10, 15% or so.
currently.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
Sure.
Okay, any other questions? And then, okay, number 3 is that Sam? Yeah. Senator Watson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator, I had a constituent call me not too long ago about these, and he was being paid cash to put these in his location. Is this what your bill is trying to solve?
Yes,
is these cash payments made to individuals and provide some regulation behind all of that?
Yes, sir. That is correct. Yeah, we believe that the gift card, which it is on a pilot program through executive order from the governor, if it's codified into law, as popular as it is, it spreads across, if it's codified in law and every location is using it, it will help clean up the inducement issues that the industry's having, and also it'll help clean up, as far as the reporting to the state because of the gift card. And also it will help revenue. I know we talked about it being about 10 to 15% of what's coming into the state or into the lottery. Well, with these gift cards, every time somebody swipes those gift cards or using them, we're getting, taxes collected to our general fund as well. So there's a whole nother component to this as well. And also, I know I've heard in caucus a few times some of the folks talk about that it's 10% coming from the COAM industry and that it's lower than what you have on the scratch-offs. But one thing to think about is these COAM operators, they're business owners, so they're also paying income tax on top of that 10% as well. And then if we enact the gift card, as the customers or the winners use those, we'll be collecting taxes as well from that portion of.
All right. Senator Hodges.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That was the nature of my question. Was the Senator, has anybody done a kind of total return calculation for the total lottery and the total COAM, and then the return to the state as opposed to the operator? So you mentioned 10%.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, has anybody taken a look at the 10% plus those tax benefits from selling or from using gift cards and all that stuff? In other words, if our lottery operation, how much money on a return basis is the state making for non-COAM versus COAM?
Right. Senator, I don't know that anybody's added that up. We should. And I'll also point out that the COAM division of lottery is essentially self-funded through fees and fines.
Mm-hmm.
So lottery really sort of has no financial skin in the COAM game. So the 10% that they get is sort of literally pure profit. But to your point, in addition to that, all of these other sources of revenue, all these other sort of verticals are certainly having an impact on Hope and on the state generally.
Yeah, I would suggest that we take a look at it. I mean, as far as our total lottery effort, I would think that we would want to have our effort would have the best returns that we could get. So.
Yeah, and I would also state that the COAM, from what I've been told, as far as in regards to the lottery, it's the only portion of lottery that's growing. With this gift card, I could see it expanding even further exponentially.
Is it a debit card or a gift card?
Well, if this bill is enacted, it would be a debit card.
Debit card,
Yes,
okay.
Yeah.
All right, we've got 2 more questions, and I'm going to let we've got 3 speakers, and I'm going to let you close, and then I'm going to make a few comments. So number 4, is that Senator? All right,
you want to go first?
Let's go Senator Mallow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator, with the gift cards, can't you purchase scratch-offs with the gift cards?
Yes, sir. Yeah, there would be no limitation to the. I mean, it would be like I believe what the lottery has now. It's a MasterCard, I believe. You know, and it can be used anywhere. I mean,
The point of why I brought that up, we talk about the lottery and kind of where the money goes to the lottery, but a lot of the money that's generated from COAMs goes right back into the lottery in just a different form of a game. And would it not just further be true that one of the reasons COAM is growing is when we started this, without the ability to get a gift card, there really wasn't an incentive for people to play the game because they didn't get anything. Now you can codify potentially what they're going to get. So now people know that I'm actually going to get something from playing this game. Unlike many of our other lottery games, there's a chance to win something versus the COAMs who we just didn't have anything for you to win.
I agree with you 110%, Senator.
Just to piggyback on Senator Mallow, I know we did a pilot program on gift cards. Was that a successful
Yeah,
pilot
very
program?
successful, yes, sir. Yeah, it's
Right.
been very successful. It just started this past year, but the operators that are using that gift card program, very successful.
All right, one final question from Senator Hickman.
Yeah, thank you, Senator, for bringing this. As you and I have talked many, many times about this, clear up something. I haven't read this just like anybody else, but the gift cards can be how much money from what to what? Is any limit on the gift cards?
No, sir.
So I can take that gift card and I can pick up my laundry with it.
Oh,
in the
absolutely.
afternoon.
Yes,
I
you
can run by Chick-fil-A and pick up dinner. I can go by Longhorn. So
Yeah, and currently, well, besides the pilot program before that, it had to be redeemed on premise, and you couldn't use. There was limited items that you could purchase. No alcohol, no tobacco products, and other things. It was very limited, very narrow.
Yeah, and the second comment, I think this goes back to something maybe Senator Hodge was asking. In some of my conversations with some of the master license, if this gift card is as successful as we all think it's going to be at the limits, sky's the limit, they're also willing to go back in, the master license are willing to go back in and look at renegotiating this 10% to maybe some other higher percent too, which I think goes back to what you were saying. And if we know that 10% is $145 million, 15% would be $200-something million. So,
and what I would urge, as we move forward with this bill in this industry, they are, we look at the lottery and we just think of gambling, but these master licenses, that they are, they're spending, each one of those machines, depending on the technology in there, they could be 15, 20, 30, $1,000, and they're putting 6 to 8 of them per location. So they've got a massive investment. So they are taking a risk. They're business owners. They're paying income tax to the state. They're paying that 10% gross right off the top. And then if we implement this gift card, the tax that will be collected on those revenues from where those customers are paying, it's going to go up exponentially. And I would say let's not punish an industry that's growing and that is helping our state by increasing that 10% initially. I say if we get this enacted, let's give it a year or two and let's come back and look at it at that point. That would be my suggestion.
I agree, and I do agree with you, Senator. I know they've got a lot of capital expenditures in these machines and so on.
Yes, sir.
Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to hear from these three folks, and I'll wrap it up with some questions, and you can just stay down there, Senator. Okay. David Jaffer, if you'd come up and keep your comments to about 2 to 3 minutes. Yeah. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Senators. David Jaffer, I represent the United C-Stores, and United C-Stores has over 3,500 members, convenience stores, and gas stations. And so I want to thank you for bringing this bill forward. Compared to what I've seen in the past is this bill has allowed all the different groups, the master licensees, the location licensees, to sort of work together, change ideas, and this is the product. And the center stone, I believe, of this bill is the gift card, which is the credit card that does away with the cash payout, things that we don't want to see in this state. So that goes a long way. I am sure we will continue to collaborate with other folks in the industry to really come up with a product that not only continues to raise revenue for the lottery and the state, but makes the industries more transparent and workable for everybody. So,
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? All right, next we've got Mark Phelan. Welcome.
Chairman Beach, esteemed members of the Economic Development Committee, thank you for letting me speak in front of you about Senate Bill 174. My name is Mark Phelan. I run all operations for Bulldog Gaming. Bulldog Gaming is a Class A and B operator in the state of Georgia. Our lineage in the Georgia amusement industry runs back to 1984. Through our sister companies, Tom's Amusement in Blue Ridge and Island Games in Savannah. Both of those companies were owned and operated by single mothers for decades. Those single moms are now grandmothers, and they play a big role in Bulldog's operations currently. And their daughters also play a big role in our company, so we're a multi-generational Georgia company. We think Senate Bill 174 is a really thoughtful, collaborative piece of legislation. It's really the accumulation of 3 years of work amongst many different groups within the industry. The industry is full of competitors, and they don't see eye to eye on many things, but they were able to overcome their differences in regards to this legislation and really create something that not only brings added reform to the industry, but also helps set it up to be a continual strong partner for the lottery and the Hope Scholarship. There's two things I think I'd probably like to discuss specifically about the bill. Gift card is the first issue that I'd like to kind of delve into. Gift card was a pilot sponsored by the Georgia Lottery in 2021 at select locations. It was a Visa card. Just for clarification, it's not tied to any account, savings, or checking. It's a gift card, so its value is stored literally on the card. It's not tied to anything else. That was very successful, and the lottery expanded that with the support of Governor Kemp's office to all locations at the end of last year. We think it's a great tool to bring compliance to the industry, as well as bring new customers, new players, and new locations. It's still a pilot, though, and the law brings permanence to the gift card. It allows participants like us to kind of eliminate any uncertainty that goes with something that's not permanent and really invest in the infrastructure and the technology and the skilled labor that would make this a very robust tool for the industry in the future. The bill also allows master licensees, Class B operators, to pay a portion of marketing or promotion for Class B activity, including the gift card. What people I don't think totally grasp is Class B machines really are not, they're in select groups of the state, even though they're very popular, and there's a big portion of the state that's still unaware of them. The gift card is brand new, so as a commercial rollout, we need to promote it. We need to drive some demand with potential new customers. The bill allows us to pay for that and pay our fair share and increase demand. On top of that, the bill allows us to fund improvements around the immediate area of the gaming area of the skill machines. It's really important if you want to create entertaining experience for players to make them feel respected, make them feel safe, comfortable, secure. This bill allows us to fund a portion of that and really, again, hopefully attract new customers and new location owners. So in summary, we're really pleased with the bill. We think it touches a lot of bases and has a lot of feedback from many participants, and I'll stop there.
Thank you. Appreciate your testimony. And finally, we've got Les Schneider. Les, if you'll come on up in 2 to 3 minutes, please, because we want to be done by 9 o'clock.
Members of the committee, Les Schneider. I represent the Georgia Music Operators Association. I've been at this for 46 years, and at one point I was the only person who ever talked about COAMs. Now everybody and their mother is talking about COAMs. But this is skill-based games, non-cash redemption. I don't know how many people in the committee were aware of it, or even people in the industry, but 40 years ago we did have gift cards, and we used them extensively, and there was never any discussion about anybody getting paid in cash. The legislature, quite frankly, probably made a mistake at one point by not allowing the gift cards, and that caused the issues that I think Senator Watson and others have talked about. So it is a positive. Again, on this tax rate, please take the analogy to yourself. If you all made, if you made for the year $100,000, before any expenses were taken out, you're being charged 10%. Then you pay income tax after that. That is the highest tax rate in this state. It is the highest tax rate for COAM machines in the country. And it has produced $145 million to the lottery at no cost to the lottery, because there's $10 or $15 million of license fees that are paid that more than covers the entire cost of the COAM division, and money from that goes to the bottom line for Hope and pre-K. So this industry is not afraid of being taxed. Senator Dixon made an excellent point. When I have tracked in previous years the amount of sales tax that used to be generated from gift cards and how many lottery tickets were bought with the non-cash redemption relating to the machines, it is an enormous amount of money. This is the fastest growing part of the lottery. All right. It does spur sales of lottery tickets, as Representative Mallow indicated. Make it very clear, the card that we're talking about, whatever you call a gift card, debit card, you cannot, under this law, get any cash for the use of that card. It has to be spent on merchandise, and you all know that when you go and use a gift card, any gift card, and you swipe it, the sales tax comes off automatically. So we're not having to pay a lot of revenue agents to make sure people pay the tax. It will come out immediately. This has been a very, very collaborative effort, sometimes painful. There have been a lot of arguments, a lot of discussions about what's there. What's in this bill may not be completely perfect, but it is a genuine attempt to stop any shenanigans that anybody who's disreputable would do and substitute it for good business practices. So we certainly would hope that you all would, at the appropriate time, move the bill forward, perhaps not today, but we do feel that there's a real positive here, and the discussions will continue. As you all know, Representative Powell has a bill over in the House that has some of these provisions in it, but we are really trying to work intently, and as I say, sometimes emotionally, about making this right and to do things even better. But this is the best COAM program in the country, and we should be very proud of it. And we're hopeful that it's going to get better, because we don't want to just stand in place.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate you, Mr. Knight. Does the committee have any, Senator, would you like to make any closing comments? And I'm going to make some comments, and we're going to see if you have any questions.
Real quickly, that, I believe this bill, it cleans up, some of the issues in the industry, put guardrails, around some of the bad actors, and it's really a win-win for everybody in the industry. I mean, it truly is, and I just urge y'all at the appropriate time to move it forward.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any final questions? Okay, let me say this. Great presentation. You did a great job, Senator. Also, I want to thank the industry for coming together. It has been painful, as you said. We just received this, and I want to thank one of the lobbyists, Jeff Hamlin, for getting this to us, I guess late last night, but we didn't see it till this morning because we had already left. Printed it off. I want to read the bill. I want to meet with the sponsor and talk about it. But I do want to thank the industry for coming together, the lobbyists for all the hard work they've done. I know y'all want to vote right now, but I'm not ready, and I want to make sure that the Lottery Corporation, if I just saw this morning at 8 o'clock, I'm sure the lottery has not seen this if it just came off the printing press. So here's where the posture is, and folks, nothing's dead till day 40. Mm-hmm. So, but the posture right now is not to take a vote on this. I will get with the sponsor. I would ask the committee to read this bill that we just received this morning, and I will get with you and we'll make a determination on what route we go, and we'll go from there. But again, thank you to the industry for all y'all have done. You've made a lot of progress, I would tell you that. And this bill is important to me. That's why I wanted it in my committee, because I want this industry to your point, have guardrails and get things to make you guys successful and make this program successful with gift cards and all the guardrails on how you sell contract, you know, when someone buys a store and so on. So
Right.
we'll get there. Just give us time. But thank you all for all your hard work. And with that, we're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you very much.